Hello there and welcome back to another edition of the Hot Lap Classic Remastered. Today we're taking a look at the 1998 Lotus Elise Sport 135. This is our first Lotus Elise to go around the track, one of 5 Elises in the game, 6 if you count the GT one, which isn't really an Elise. And this one is statistically the worst one, I believe. It's actually, in fairness to this, they're all quite sort of tight in terms of their maximum power output and how light they can be. But I think this one is actually the second weakest on power and the heaviest of all of them. Which is weird because there's less powerful ones and more powerful ones, and this is the mid-range model, but technically it's the worst one. So that's what you get for buying mid-range, I guess, and that's why it doesn't have a race mod. Not just because, of course, this has awesome side decals that are incredibly 90s. I don't know how many Elise Sport 135s are left. It gets overshadowed by the Sport 190 and the 111S, which was a nameplate that returned for the Elise, but here it is. Anyways, we shall see how it gets along. It is a mid-engine rear-wheel drive, 247 horsepower, 708 kilos. Despite being one of the heaviest Elises, it is one of the lightest. It is going to get 6 laps of the Motorsports Land track at the best time it possibly can. Our current leader is the Daihatsu Storia Rally car, a 28.410. The Elise Sport 135 is unlikely to beat that. I need to try and remember this is the Sport 135 because I'm so used to saying Sport 190. Because Sport 135 is never usually in any game, really. And I've gone with silver because Vanishing Point, basically. Those of you who know what Vanishing Point is, you know, you're the true OGs. Not of this channel, just in general, you know your PS1 racing games. So, this Elise, how is this going to get along? I have no idea. We've had 2 Lotuses already, actually. I think this is one of our more prevalent manufacturers, ironically enough. We've had the 90s Elan, which was pretty quick, 31.534. And we've had the Esprit V8, which was about 30.5, I think. So if this gets a 31 dead, then it can go right in the middle of those. Unfortunately, these low-powered mid-engine cars have not been doing well. Or rather, the specific bearer of bad omens for this one is the Toyota MR2, which was... as I understeer into the wall while I'm trying to look at the leaderboard. The MR2 was a particular disappointment. That tied with the Daihatsu Terios Kid with a 32.174, and that had more power than this, so I'm not holding out hope. The problem with these mid-engined rear-drive cars is Gran Turismo has never been able to handle mid-engine cars particularly well. Case in point, they sort of just drive like death traps, and it's just not suited for this course, really. It's sort of, because it's so light, it's going to get battered around by the bumps. It's powerful and light, which means it's very, very sort of nervous to drive. And again, Gran Turismo has never been able to handle mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars particularly well. That being said, we can definitely do better than the current lap time on the board, even if we do get snaps of oversteer as we're coming off the grass. This might be a car where I have to sort of decelerate a little bit in order to get it turned. Another thing with this is it's surprisingly understeery. I was not expecting understeer out of all things in the Elise, but that's what we're dealing with. That's not great. I mean, if the front wheel drive Elan beats this, I'm going to be quite happy, but obviously I'm going to try and beat that. I'm not going to, you know, I'm never going to purposely drive something worse just to subpoena it to a particular part of the board for my own amusement. That would be non-scientific of me. As we all know, the Hot Lap Classic Remastered is, of course, remarked upon in scientific studies. 31.811. There we go. I knew there was a little bit more time in here. It's not great though. In a weird way, that reminds me quite a lot of the BMW 323 Ci, when it's not necessarily like a bad car to drive or anything, as much as that footage there doesn't prove that. It just feels incredibly ill-fitting for this course. I think around a wider racetrack, the understeer wouldn't be so much of an issue. Around a track where you don't cut as many corners, the traction would be less of an issue. But having a track where it has to do all of that, it just doesn't like it. 31.811. Interesting we mentioned the 323 Ci. It goes fractionally quicker. It's quicker than the 323 Ci, Sylvia S14, Mazda NA. So it's not bad. It does get beaten out by Dodge Avenger, Starlet Galanza. I'm trying to think of anything else more comparable to this. Just off the top of the leaderboard, you might be able to see it, you might not. The Lotus Elan, 31.534. The front-wheel drive Elan is quicker. Although, as I mentioned, considering this is the heaviest and one of the least powerful Elises in the game, the Elises should get better from here on out. But we'll see. That's interesting, though, certainly. Anyways, that's it for this episode. Thank you all very much for watching, and join me next time when hopefully I'll be driving something that's a bit more drivable. Until then, farewell.